fost odată ca niciodată un castel. Erau chiar mai multe, dar nimeni nu le mai știe numărul. Curtenii se întâlneau zilnic și puneau țara la cale. Keep on fighting, don't give up. Keep on riding, keep on keeping up. Supușii erau însă triști și nedumeriți de ce se discută atât de mult când ei tot nefericiți rămân. Există în prezent numeroase dezbateri despre modalitățile prin care locuitorii unei țări pot fi interesați de propria lor soartă. Se încearcă un transfer de responsabilitate dinspre politicieni către populație, categorie cel mai adesea sceptică față de sistemul politic. Teama că cei care decid de undeva de deasupra nu vor ține cont de nevoile noastre e de înțeles. La fel de natural, suntem tentați să întoarcem spatele și să ne vedem de treaba noastră. Se ridică probleme abstracte și când se rezolvă ceva, noi tot nu suntem mai fericiți.
On pense que les gens ne vont plus voter, personne n'y croit à la vie politique. Il faut qu'on y trouve un moyen de penser comment les personnes peuvent se sentir partie d'une société. Nous cherchons beaucoup à comprendre comment la société change. Ça, c'est mon travail. Et finalement, on arrive à définir qu'est-ce que c'est le bien-être. Et le bien-être, être heureux, très bien, veut dire des espaces de rencontre avec les autres, la sécurité dans la ville où ils habitent, la possibilité d'avoir une intimité, donc de ne pas être espié, être respecté dans la parole, c'est-à-dire pouvoir s'exprimer et être prise au sérieux.
Una dintre condițiile unui trai satisfăcător este mobilitatea socială. Studiile arată că pentru a fi fericit, un om trebuie să aibă speranța că poate să își depășească statutul și să trăiască mai bine.
The social mobility, it is an aspiration on everybody. And I think this is a major issue of the society.
Mobilitatea socială se află însă în impas. În Italia, anul trecut, o analiză publicată în presă atrăgea atenția că actuala generație tânără va trăi mai rău decât generația dinainte. Șomajul în rândul tinerilor cu studii superioare în Italia este de 40%.
We have this aspiration in Western Europe that the new generations will always be living better than the previous generations. And now something happened that for the first time in 70 years, the current generation will be facing some degradation in their life conditions.
În Franța, statisticile arată că în anii 90, tinerii care intrau pe piața muncii câștigau cu 30% mai mult decât cei care intră acum. În plus, tinerii rămân să locuiască cu părinții pe o durată mult mai mare, în lipsa unei autonomii financiare.
If you compare in 15 years the young generation entering the labor market, they have lost in real terms income and capacity of becoming an adult in terms of not only professionally, having an autonomous family life, etc.
C'est elle qui donne de la vigueur aux empires. La paix maintient l'ordre parmi les citoyens.
L'école n'est plus l'instrument de la mobilité sociale. Mon fils fait ses études. Et donc, je discute avec lui comment intégrer dans sa vie d'autres dimensions, parce que peut-être il n'y aura plus la mobilité sociale que j'ai eue. Je viens d'une famille où tous étaient des émigrés pauvres. Et j'ai passé des étapes dans ma vie et maintenant je dirige un service au Conseil de l'Europe. Mais peut-être ça ne sera jamais les mêmes.
Sărăcia este frecvent asociată cu lipsa resurselor, cu imposibilitatea de a achiziționa produse. Nu de mult, hrana era considerată problema majoră.
Pe suprafața Terei trăiesc astăzi aproape 4 miliarde de oameni. Dacă ritmul actual de creștere a populației de 2% se păstrează, în 2000 pe Terra vor locui 8 miliarde de oameni. Explozia demografică a ridicat în fața omenirii una dintre problemele cele mai acute: hrana.
Sia sulla cittadinanza formale, come nel caso dei migranti.
This dimension doesn't take into account other dimension, which are more related to what we can call material deprivation, access to services, access to housing, education.
It's not only poverty, it's not being poor, but losing possibilities.
It is not only to do on the basis of economic growth, but also in terms of quality of life.
Economia globală poate crea dezechilibre, în special pe piața de muncă. Cele mai afectate sunt clasa medie și oamenii foarte săraci.
I think mobility and flexibility in a positive sense are open possibility only for a certain elite. And it was not like that before in our democratic countries. Et ça, ce sont des aspects que peut-être il faut qu'on reconsidère pour être heureux. Et pas uniquement avoir un modèle de consommation de richesse. Nous sommes tout à fait contentes quand quelque chose coûte très peu. Et donc nous allons même acheter plus du nécessaire parce que c'est pas cher. Mais quand on fait ça pour produire ce qui ne coûte pas cher, il y a de l'autre côté de ces produits quelqu'un qui a payé pour ça.
Când cumpărăm un produs, de regulă ne gândim doar la ce ne va folosi. Consumul critic sau responsabil merge ceva mai departe. Înseamnă să ții cont de condițiile în care un pantof sau o conservă au fost produse și au intrat într-un lanț comercial.
Un pauvre qui achète une chemise, ou même un riche, ou n'importe qui achète une chemise qui coûte 3 euros ou 5 euros, est en train de détruire pour nous-mêmes la possibilité d'améliorer les conditions de pauvreté. Moins cher coûte quelque chose, et vous pouvez parier sur le fait que quelqu'un a reçu un salaire très faible, quelqu'un n'a pas eu droit accès à ses droits, quelqu'un a été très exploité.
Et plus exactement avec les actes et les textes.
IFAT is the International Fair Trade Association. We have more than 300 members and we're growing very rapidly in 65 countries around the world.
Pentru a fi membru IFAT, trebuie să ai venituri de 50% din comerțul echitabil. Produsele avizate de IFAT trebuie să îndeplinească 10 condiții.
The standards are paying a fair price, gender equality, good working conditions, no child labour, things that you would expect in terms. But more importantly, we have things like trading relationship. So a trading relationship within fair trade is different. We have an expectation that they will have long-term relationships, there will be respect in the relationship. We also expect transparency. That's not normal in a commercial relationship.
În secolul trecut, societățile avansate economic au cultivat actele de caritate. Caritatea obișnuia să fie privită ca un obicei bun. Astfel se întâmpla ca o țară bogată sau pur și simplu un om bogat să fie generoși cu cel mai sărac decât ei. Astăzi, economiștii resping caritatea, pe care o consideră inechitabilă față de cel ajutat, ba mai mult, neavantajoasă de ambele părți.
In fair trade, we don't believe in charity. We don't expect anyone to buy something because it's a charity act. We want people to look at the product, to like it, and then to buy it. We're potentially increasing the global market for products. Rather than people becoming poorer, they then become richer and able to enter into the global market.
Il serait également souhaitable de développer la législation relative au domaine en question.
We are today buying products at raw material prices from developing countries at prices which are lower than 20 years ago. We are now paying prices where people can't even cover their basic costs of producing the product.
În momentul de față există dezbatere asupra filierei prin care produsele ajung pe masa consumatorului.
Ce qu'on appelle la traçabilité de la filière, c'est-à-dire qu'elle a une certaine transparence sur la façon comme un produit au bout de la chaîne a été réalisé. Ça veut dire que dans la globalisation, on peut y réintroduire des concepts où l'on travaille un petit peu progressivement vers la dignité un peu de tous les humains.
Mass media a avut ultimul cuvânt. Pot jurnaliștii intermedia dialogul dintre autorități și populație?
I've just started on Newsnight, but my editor's already got an idea for me. Do I want to turn my life completely upside down as part of an experiment in ethical living? Well, I've only just started on the programme, so yeah, of course I do. I didn't want to be the ethical man for my programme Newsnight. And he came up with the idea, and part of the idea of it is that I'm a bit sceptical and a bit reluctant to do some of the things to sort of change my lifestyle.
We could follow the example of this man. Francis Maud is chairman of the Conservative Party, and he saves water and improves his garden by urinating on his compost heap. Apparently, human urine makes an excellent high nitrogen liquid fertilizer for most plants.
Obviously, Francis Maud's garden, I think, is a bit different from ours. Because obviously we're right on the street.
Overlooked by neighbours on both sides.
What do you reckon, babe? Is there anyone down there?
Just a minute.
Spin around with them. Spin.
No.
Is anyone coming?
No.
What about Chrissy?
No, nobody's looking. Quick, quick, quick. Oh, God.
I keep my compost bin in the front garden by the hedge.
What is Newsnight coming to?
So that's the idea, really, to find a way of creating a narrative, a story that draws the audience in, but discusses quite serious issues at the same time.
We had to give up the car, for example. We had a car, quite a nice car, and we gave it away.
which was quite a challenge for me. I've always had a car.
I think for men it's quite
ever since I could drive, I'm not sure.
It is, it's part of your identity, the car you drive, you know.
It could reduce our carbon footprint by as much as 1.5 tons. That's around 15% of all the carbon me and my family are responsible for. The really big question is what difference it's going to make to all our lives.
I wasn't very involved in doing things in an environmental way, and B, my wife.
Yeah, he didn't recycle, you know, little things like recycling and, you know, good environmental practice in the house he didn't really do. So he'd drink a beer and then throw the tin into the rubbish, not into the recycling box. So little things like that. And I would go, oh, recycle, you should do this, you should do that, typically. And now that, you know, he is an ethical man, he has to, because his editor says, you've got to do it. So it's quite funny.
My boss says I have to do it.
Yeah.
As a nation, we walk less than ever before, take public transport less than before, and we drive more. Because, as my family's finding out, hopping in the car takes a lot less organisation.
Stop it, Justin, I'm getting really pissed off.
Okay, all right.
Reportajele lui Justin, difuzate de BBC, expun într-o manieră nu tocmai ortodoxă problemele cu care se confruntă o familie care alege să trăiască etic. Nu-i greu de bănuit că el își atrage constant acuzele evangheliștilor ecologiei și ai vieții așa zis etice. Omul etic, adică Justin, deservește, spun ei, adevărata cauză.
It's an ethical act, you see, including the family, because without you say you need the examples of individuals, and that's what we've tried to do, is personalise it. Some people would criticise us for that and say we trivialise it as well, but it personalises these rather abstract global issues.
It is really about selling not people, but selling to sell a product, to sell a way to consider how to do proper transport or ethical transport. It's a difficult thing, but in this case with Justin, he uses his family. Good, my goodness, who would do that in order to get out and in touch with the viewers? But it's basically the same we are talking about when we are talking homeless people, excluded people, drug addicts, alcoholics, indebted people, whatever. We need actually to see them, how it affects their life in order to make other people aware and the media is aware that here we have a story with this family and see what we can do about their lives and how we can get the masses to have an interest in their specific problems.
My problem that I deal with, and not only me, my colleagues, is how to make the discourse as little pedagogical as possible and still promote the issues that have been discussed here, like social inclusion, responsible consumption.
There's a problem here. How can you promote, right? I mean,
it's not about promoting.
But it's not about promoting, yeah. I think, you know, you've got the wrong idea about this promotion.
Okay.
Because it's not really about promoting anything. The idea is to explore what can individuals do. That's the question. You know, you go and live ethically. The editor says you go and live ethically as a family for a year and see what difference you can make. Maybe we can make no difference or very little difference. And if that's the case, we'd report that.
Put yourself in a very engaged type of way onto the stage. And if you look at what's happening on internet and in blogging, the new blogging culture and tradition, I think that we are in the area of something which is a little bit more personal. That our Danish friend was saying, well, it's almost something that sometimes we shouldn't be talking about, because we don't talk about it. We don't show unemployed people or something like that.
Back in the streets, very hard to get by, but you're doing much better, got nothing to deny. Your roots, the place you come and you go to, where you're lost and found, and life is all around.
So my name is Peter Volkovinsky. I have a private company which is called Territories, Identities and Developments. This is why we're at this conference of the Council of Europe, because we think that acting in a socially responsible way on a territory is probably one of the new ways of doing local governance, of living together. It's very difficult to say to a politician, why did you make this decision? Because it's his private little garden here. The basic aim is to try and empower people, give people the right to do things, for example, to have work. So many of these structures have become structures which help unemployed people to qualify themselves and to find work in alternative fashions. For example, there is another indicator which came out of this work, which is very interesting, which is called spatial equality. The people who live in a town, for example, do they have access to the same number of square meters when they take the tram or the car, or when they go to a museum, or when they don't go to a museum, or when they go to the cinema or they don't go to the cinema? You can actually count the equality of the space that everybody has. And sometimes you can analyze the reasons why there is tension in some areas, because simply there are less square meters shared by the people living, for example, in blocks with many apartments, than in areas where you have individual houses and everything that goes with it.
J'ai donc proposé un film qui parlait d'alimentation, puisque c'était le point de départ de mon film. Je pense que le consommateur, pour qu'il soit responsable, parce que j'ai entendu beaucoup consommateur responsable, mais pour être responsable, il faut être informé. Ce film qui était tout à fait, je dirais, modeste, avec une idée tout à fait modeste au départ, de parler simplement du goût et de retrouver le goût. Moi qui adore les tomates, j'en ai eu assez de manger des tomates qui étaient de plus en plus dégueulasses. Donc tout simplement, j'étais dans ma cuisine, je faisais à manger, et j'ai dit, mais c'est pas possible. J'ai tout jeté dans la poubelle, j'étais en colère, et j'ai dit, c'est plus possible de manger ces tomates, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Et j'ai dit à mon mari, c'est mon prochain film. Il y a 7359 variétés différentes de tomates, de graines. Et donc, moi, je me suis dit, comment il y a 7359 variétés, en France ou n'importe où ailleurs, on en mange 5. Et donc, c'était la découverte de la mondialisation de la tomate, et donc de l'alimentation, et donc de l'unification du goût. En faisant mon film, je contribue à l'inclusion, d'une certaine manière, puisque je parle dans mon film de la map et d'une solution pour s'en sortir. Vous, consommateurs, vous croyez être en dehors d'un système ou dans un système, ça dépend d'ailleurs, ou victime d'un système dont on a l'impression qu'on ne peut pas sortir en tant que consommateur. Quand on va au supermarché, on a l'impression qu'on est victime d'un système. Et on dit, ah ben oui, mais j'ai pas le choix, je suis bien obligé, qu'est-ce que je vais choisir? Mais on choisit pas en fait, puisque tout est pareil, tout est formaté sur le même moule. Donc quand je parle d'inclusion, c'est dire aux consommateurs qui regardent mon film, non, attention, vous n'êtes pas victime, vous pouvez avoir le choix il est là. Puisqu'on peut se sentir exclu en tant que consommateur de la bonne nourriture. Moi, je me suis sentie exclue pendant longtemps de la bonne nourriture. Pour moi, donner l'information, de faire un film, c'est tendre la main aussi, d'une certaine manière. C'est essayer d'apporter sa pierre, de servir à quelque chose, être utile à quelque chose. Je veux dire, sinon, ce métier n'a pas de sens pour moi.
Les Occidentaux sont des personnes extrêmement individuelles. Nous voulons être nous-mêmes, mais le problème c'est maintenant comment, une fois qu'on a conquéri cet aspect d'autonomie, de reconnaissance individuelle, comment nous allons faire partie d'un projet social. parce que c'est indispensable pour notre vie. Ça ne veut pas dire revenir, par exemple, au communisme dans lequel vous y étiez parti d'un projet collectif, mais aucun de vous pouvait dire avoir une initiative individuelle.
Back in the streets where the city don't sleep, got my eyes on the corner on the other guy. You know you found a place worth fighting for, back to your destination, to another situation. Gotta have a ball, jumping, jumping, we're on the scene more than we've ever been. Heart of the city, pumping, pumping like a beat machine, and you're stuck in between.